you stop that, man?
That
He's just
poor
trying
guy.
to lock out somebody's phone.
We're going. He's making emergency calls.
He's who? You? All right, perfect. My name is. We doing real names?
No.
Yeah. I'm SynAckPwn. This talk is a little bit of a troll on what I see, at least in the past, I'd say 6 months, this super hyped cyber threat intel map as a service thing, right? Yeah, APT Hunter in a map. So what we're talking about today, and this is just me. So my background, I was an ex-Fed military guy, computer network defense. Went to, I wouldn't really call it red teaming in the military or DoD. It was just more, kind of vulnerability assessments with verification, a lot of check boxes, a lot of DITSCAP stuff. Got out of that. Now I'm in critical infrastructure because that's a lot more fun. They're about 10 years behind everyone else. So when you think of security practices in, say, the enterprise, they're like where we were in mid-90s, late 90s for power plants, substations, oil and gas, on that. So, yeah, I know exactly. I mean, they're like, how do we go from 95 to XP for some of our control systems? It's a real concern for them. So what that means is that I can actually be a mediocre tester and be a total rock star in critical infrastructure. So that's why I like it. On the side, I actually brew beer because it's more therapeutic and the product's a lot better than what I typically do. So that's a quick plug for Binary Brewworks. That's right. And then I'll let Mr. Hilt.
So I'm to the hilt. I much like Synack here. I
OPSEC bro?
yeah, no OPSEC at all. I'm also in the critical infrastructure world. I spent a lot of time in the critical infrastructure world. I did networking and security for a large utility in the southeast for a while. And by day, I'm a researcher and consultant at a practice that specializes in industrial control system security. This talk is about the results of my DerbyCon talk and how things went bad real quick. Even though I thought everything went real well, but as you can see, buddies at Critical Intelligence were funny yesterday and made a nice little tweet about seeing spikes in activity on the internet for Televent Oasis products and Foxborough Invencis, and asking if it was me. So you kind of get a what this talk's going to be about for a minute, and then that's my nation state flag, because I am a nation state. This all started with my DerbyCon talk, which was Protocol Me Maybe. You can watch it. Adrian put it up super fast, like always. The concept of the talk was about how stuff I'm doing in my day job, trying to enumerate and identify industrial control system protocols via in-map scripts. So understanding the protocols, which are insecure by design because they lack authentication, encryption, and data integrity. So they're kind of interesting to find. There is some complexity to some of the protocols, but not overly complex, as in you have to decrypt things or anything like that for the most part. So I went down the road to make that presentation with mostly using Shodan data as well as some online scanning. And I tried to make my online scanning very non-hazardous, knowing that these still can cause problems on the internet if it's a production device, say it's a production PLC. There still may be the slight chance that you may cause a problem. So I identified 95 con pots in Shodan. And a con pot is a specific honeypot that's built around industrial control system protocols that responds to Modbus and Siemens S7. They were all in the default configuration, and which you can easily identify in Shodan that they are those. So I wanted to kind of get some good screenshots and stuff of that, knowing that I found how to identify them and that they actually still respond to the proper protocol requests and stuff like that. So based off of that, I scanned roughly 15 of came back. So after my DerbyCon talk, I come back, everything's doing good, and then the Tuesday after DerbyCon, a Bloomberg article shows up that says, "The Beijing-Chattanooga connection and online attacks against our decoy." And the quote down there, we obfuscated the accused parties here. Like Douche Nozzle Inc. isn't the real company name. Go look at the article. You can see the real company name. We're not trying to call out them specifically. This is a problem that exists in this whole space. So, Chief Technical Officer points out nation states sometimes launch attacks from computers within their own borders because they can control the internet from there and can ensure the computers won't get taken offline. Actually, the second one there is, I believe, is the screenshot of as the article's title is today after they altered it and never said they updated it. So that's Bloomberg, never said they updated the article. Nice nice slide here, or the graphic that they put in there that, Beijing's up there with 37 probes or something like that, and Chattanooga with 35. Which is interesting. So once you start breaking down the protocol, and I just already said that I've scanned 15 devices. There is roughly 2 probes per device that I send with my script. So apparently they captured some of the ping requests as well and considered those probes. But there should have been roughly 30 probes that I can account for. So then, after DerbyCon, it's all coincidental because if it had happened any other time, I think everybody would have cared. But Steve Reagan at CSO Online happened to actually know of my talk and pinged me immediately, knowing that I lived in Chattanooga and I had just given a talk on finding honeypots on the internet and just talked about it at DerbyCon. So he pings me and says, "Hey, what do you think? Do you think this could have possibly been you?" Kind of thing. And so he reached out to Douche Nozzle Inc. and to me, and we started talking back and forth between him. And some of the quotes that he got from them were pretty awesome. The scans were honeypots. The scans were 2 honeypots, so there is no reason for any traffic to be going to these systems, is actually something they said to him. We found absolutely nothing almost nothing publicly available about this IP. And they run no legitimate service and have no DNS entries. So traffic to them is suspicious. Because if you don't have a DNS entry, your IP address on the internet, any traffic to it's obviously suspicious. Yeah. Especially to traffic TCP port 102 that conforms to the S7 COM spec. They later said that they know of no other service that runs over TCP 102, which if anybody knows anything about TCP 102, it's an it's an ISO standard port, so all of the ISO related control system protocols use TCP 102. There's roughly, I know of 5 or 6 that will speak only over TCP 102.
So short story.
Yeah.
You still have your job.
Yes, I still have my job.
You're still employed. So these are supposedly, at least when you go read their marketing brochures, I mean, these are next-gen, advanced, persistent. Yeah, right. I mean, these are the multi-billion-dollar companies. They're going to sell you $1 million a year as a service to go track down these threats, the Chinese threats, the Chattanooga threats, whatever, right? The problem is that they're just seeing what's marketable, what's sellable. Right. So if they get 30 pings from China, it's, oh my God, we're under attack from China. Right. They're not providing what I consider to be real threat intel. Now, from my DoD background, even though I worked in intel agencies, I wasn't an analyst. I was just like, IT support geek guy for intel analysts. But being around them, real intel is not this crap. Right. And I know this sells, and believe me, this is cool. And I know it's hard to see. So I'll go through these. I know it sells. I know diagrams, charts and graphs, dashboards. That's what gets the execs like super excited about buying stuff, right? Because it's data visualization. We have all these pings from China, and can we cross correlate that with command and control servers and all this other BS, right? The funny thing is that they're all just using open source stuff. So stuff that you guys code that Steven, I'm sorry, to the hilt codes. Thanks, bro.
Do you even know?
Where they're just reusing shit. They're just taking Conpot, standard code off of Git and then just wrapping it in their own installer and calling it, the threat matrix. And these are familiar because this is the standard HoneyNet project mapping, build. You got threat stream. Oh my gosh, it's attacks from here to here and by our service. This to me is not threat intelligence. It's data visualization, right? There's some other ones, NextGov. I mean, everyone has these, right? I mean, I even put one up on the brewery website just because. So these two guys, it was HRBR Master and Alex Speck. They did a spoof. They said, all right, well, we can do data visualization, and it makes pew-pew sounds and, everything from China. I mean, it's really cool. But so you can go home tonight and set up one of these mapping services and be like, hey, I sell threat intel services as well. Hire me. These are always, right, like Jason shows these in his talks, and it's, oh my God, we're under attack from some hole in the middle of the United States. It's just, it's meaningless data. It's not, it's cool data, and it's interesting to see, but as a perimeter defense guy, as a blue teamer, or even as a red teamer, I'm not getting anything out of that. I'm not getting tactics and procedures out of that. I'm not getting trends, really. It's like, oh, wow, we have scanning and probes from China. If any of you have set up any kind of device online, you know you're going to get probes all the time. So what is that really telling you? What? Quiet. PCI. DITSCAP. So I pulled some stuff from...
Question.
Yes, sir. Well, and we're getting to that, right? So if you want to F with anyone, right? There's certain parts of the decade, right? So for a while it was the Russians, now it's the Chinese. It's kind of the Russians. But if you want to do anything illegal or kind of gray, just pipe it through China or Russia, because it'll immediately be tagged on those two nations, regardless. Yeah.
Either in China and Russia.
Yeah, I was using they had a horrible name. It was called Perfect Privacy, but it was a VPN, and the reason why I like Perfect Privacy was that they didn't limit on bandwidth and they didn't limit on ports, right? So any port you want to scan, as much bandwidth as they can support, but you can pop out in Hong Kong, China, Frankfurt. I was going out of Frankfurt, Germany, because I figured the Germans need some love, but right, so I mean, you can do it because this is the thing now. It's just, we're going to show packets coming out of one country into another, and that's how we're going to do attribution without any analysis. That you can peg it on other people. So piping through China is a huge thing right now.
So to answer your question, Boris, I wasn't trying to be an ass.
But now, because I live in Chattanooga, and now I have what were we saying? Now I have a Rube, right? So I can do all the scanning I want for my house, and they're going to call this guy right here. Because that's as far as they go in their threat analysis. It's where's the IP coming from? Let me do a Google search. Oh my God, it's Chattanooga, right? So I pulled some from some job descriptions, some other things, and what's real intel analysis, and this is kind of the conversation I want to have with you guys. Discerning patterns of complex behavior, right? We're talking about checklists before. Well, what are the 10 things that every nation state scanner, prober, malware guy, what are the things they do? They send a probe, then they come back later, they check it, they try to get access. I mean, what are those steps? So it's patterns out of that behavior. You have to have some sort of reasoning skills, which dashboards don't give you. You have to have working relationships, because not everyone's an expert in everything, right? So there may be cultural things, there may be regional or local things, where you're saying, we're from the Southeast, so maybe we just know things about the Southeast, or if you're West Virginia, you may know things about, certain things in West Virginia that wouldn't be readily apparent from some corporate Borg in San Francisco trying to sell you, threat intel. We all have different industry or, integration, or we're all experts in different systems. So you have to have those relationships with people, so then that way they can give you that quick intel analysis that you're not going to get out of a data reduction system or a correlation system that's just taking raw data and connecting them up. Kind of the hacker mindset, intrigued by questions. Why are these things happening? Not just that we're getting probes from China, but why are we getting probes from China? Is this any different from any other freaking day? Being able to ask those questions, then finding meaningful patterns in the meaningless noise. So what we're getting right now, at least from what I'm seeing, because I'm not paying for these services, I'm just seeing what crap they're putting online to try to sell it. We're just getting a lot of meaningless noise that happens to be pretty, right? It's not really helping us at all. Yes, PCI. So again, Boris can be your boss. I highly recommend it. So again, data visualization is not intel analysis. Not saying that data visualization is bad. We need it. We need it for a certain level of executive to either prove or validate or justify why we just spent millions of dollars on a system to defend our perimeter. But it's not intel analysis. So I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of in marketing now. So I love the hell out of my Magic Quadrant, right? Because it's such a BS piece of marketing material. But what we can use it for is when you look at threat actors and how they act, there's different levels, right? You have folks like Mr. Hilt here, whereas this, I'm just scanning shit. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not, DCMA, whatever, did I have authorized access or not? We're not going to get into that gray area, but I'm doing legit stuff. I'm not doing anything that's different from just browsing their website. So I don't need to obfuscate my actions, my activities. There's no need. So that's kind of your base level, right? Then you kind of scale up. You say, well, I'm not doing anything illegal, but if my boss found out that I was scanning ICS ports in my spare time, he might fire me. So I may still not want to be connected to these activities, right? So this is one things where, use a VPN and you don't have to pop out of China, just pop out of another node in the United States. Like, you're not trying to be super elite ninja hacker, and we'll get to the reason why is you don't want to be that sophisticated because that may get you a different level of attention that you don't want. Again, kind of in the middle gray area, you may be doing something that's maybe illegal, something's misconfigured, I'm just going to dump databases, I'm going to dump sensitive files. PCI. Right, these are the things that are gray. You don't want to be connected to them. They may be illegal, but the impact is still basically benign, right? You're not bringing down systems. You're not going to go to Pastebin and dump everything. You're doing it either to prove a concept or to try to get a job or whatever the case may be, but it's mostly harmless. And then there's the top right quadrant, which is I'm actually trying to destroy something or someone, right? It's illegal, and that's where you start doing the whole, I'm going to go buy a Chromebook with, cache, and then I'm going to find an open access point in a city that I don't live in, and then I'm going to bounce through, 7 proxies so nobody can catch me. I mean, you're going to do all that because you're super paranoid because the impact is directly related to the risk and the amount of trouble that you can get into. Risk. Check the box. All right, so I call level 0 the errata Rob model. So anyone know erratasec, Rob, right? He put out a tool called mass scan. So as soon as Heartbleed or any one of these freaking, like icon, Hollywood name vulnerabilities come out, he'll go out and say, hey, I wrote a plugin for this script. I'm just going to scan the internet for Heartbleed, right? He doesn't just scan the internet and then dump the data anywhere. He'll go out and say, hey guys, I'm doing it. And then I'm going to put in my user agent, hi, this is Rob from erratasec. I'm scanning your shit. Right? He's totally transparent about it because, again, in his blog post, whether you agree with him or not, he feels I'm not doing anything wrong. There's no need for me to obfuscate what I'm doing. In fact, I'm going to share my data. He kind of has this altruistic, like, no, if you want to know if I found something on your IP block, just email me and kind of prove and kind of do like the secret handshake, and I'll send you my data, right? Because he's going to scan it and he's going to tell you about it. He's not doing anything wrong. So that's kind of one example. Got any others?
Well, I mean,
that's where you were at, right?
This is the level where I was at, which is I'm not trying to do anything too bad. I'm just And in fact, I specifically went to devices that I knew that weren't industrial control system devices, just so I could, kind of a proof of concept. Um, so it's kind of the same thing where I didn't announce I was doing it, which apparently rubs people wrong in that world. I didn't go into the non-existent portal to announce that I'm a researcher and here's the IP address I was going to scan from, because that's apparently something that they expected. I don't know why, but non-existent portal, but yet it's supposed to be there. So it's kind of the same thing where this is the level I was trying to be at. I didn't want to hide myself. In fact, my mindset was if I'm going to hide myself and use a VPN or anything else, it's actually going to look worse than what I was trying to do.
So again, these are advanced threat intel people saying, well, he didn't register on the standardized form for internet researchers and put in their trouble ticket for, hey, I'm going to scan the internet today, to let all these advanced threat intel people know, hey, these probes are coming from a researcher, not from China, right? So this is the level of folks we're dealing with here. Level 1, right? So I know Weave's been, so Weave is like a professional troll. So if you're ever a troll, you really need to look at his kind of background and the way he trolls. So level 1's kind of the I don't want to be Weave model. So regardless of what you think of him as a person, I personally don't think he did anything illegal. So the reason why he got prosecuted or he went through everything he went through, it's not because he did anything illegal, it's because he was an asshole, right? Right? The way he handled it, who he targeted, right? They have lawyers that are just ready to eat people like that up. Even though it may not be technically illegal, it's still, they're going to mess up your world. So again, at this level, you're doing stuff, it's still legal, or you're still kind of, ethically going, I'm not doing anything wrong. But you don't want to deal with the hassle. You don't want to deal with the potential of, am I going to lose my job? Is my company, and sometimes people do this on purpose, right? I'm going to do a super cool DEF CON talk and then let the ninja lawyers know the week before, so that way I can get a cease and desist and be all sexy. So there's an option there. But if you're really doing research or you're really trying to do something real, this is where you would say, well, maybe I'll pop through a VPN, just a layer, because I don't feel like going over to the Starbucks and using their open Wi-Fi, or I don't feel like doing this. I want to sit in my house. I want to scan. So I'm not doing anything wrong, but I'm going to do a little bit of obfuscation, right? So there are tons of ways to do this. You can, different VPNs. You can use Tor. You can, there's different plugins for Chrome like Ola and stuff, where if you just want to browse to a website or go to an open FTP and you don't want to peer from your ISP, there's ways to do it. And it's a lot of CYA for not a lot of effort. So that's kind of where you're at here. Level 2, so I don't know if you remember, it was 2 years ago, Internet Census 2012. So this guy basically went out and created a botnet for the purpose of just scanning everything. So this was kind of before ZMAP came out, before MassScan came out, before there were ways to scan the internet in 10 hours kind of reliably. It was, well, let me go out and use illegal tactics, exploit known vulnerabilities, and I think it was embedded systems, right? And then not use them for, DDoS, not use them to propagate malware, but I just want to scan the internet more efficiently than I can for my house. So this guy did it. He didn't come out and say who he was, because he was using kind of gray legal tactics for mostly altruistic purpose, right? It was mostly harmless. It was just like almost like a master's degree kind of thesis, right? How can I scan the internet and do all this data visualization? So again, that's where he didn't come out and say, hey, this was me, I did it, come hire me for your company, because he or she was using illegal tactics. And then you have this stuff, right? Now I love Brian. I have like a man crush on Brian Krebs, by the way. He's totally cool, because he's one of the few folks where you think of, all right, he's doing intelligence gathering for his industry. He's going to the forums. He knows how they process that data, how they package and resell credit card data. He's working with the banks and the payment processors to try and identify. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't know about the Home Depots of the world and the Targets of the world, because he's the one that's going in there saying, I'm seeing all these credit cards and I'm doing the data analysis, and it looks like all these cards are coming from Home Depot. What the hell, right? The problem is that when you do stuff like that, then people come after you. So he was swatted, and if you know what swatted is, it's, the call is coming from inside the house type scenario. It's hey, if you don't give me $10,000, I got Brian and his family locked up in the closet. I'm going to start executing them, one every hour. They send the SWAT team to your house when that happens. Except it wasn't Brian calling, it was some Russian dude calling. So this is that level of, I'm trying to destroy someone or something. So this is what you would consider real black hat hacking. I'm doing espionage for a corporation, or I'm being paid by a nation state, China, to try and actually get something, not just for proof of concept, not to get a DEF CON talk, but to actually use it, sell it, pivot, whatever the case may be. So this level, they're using all those tactics to, hide their tracks, to delete their logs, to go through 7 different proxies, to do whatever it is that their modus is to try and hide. The problem is that the more sophistication you add into how you obfuscate, and it's directly related to the impact, but you're going to get a different level of sophistication by the people hunting you down. So this is where you get FBI, different levels of investigation involved. And because they're more sophisticated, and because you're doing illegal shit anyway, the risk of prosecution and the risk of bad things happening to you goes up. So this is where we were talking before, where it's like, it's fun to bounce through proxies and, oh, look at me, logging in from Germany to scan the internet. Problem is that, we all know that some of those services aren't that great. They're getting national security letters and they're having to give up their logs. So why be associated with those type of people if you're not those type of people? And that's kind of where we're going with this. So again, to wrap up on that, when you look at it from the threat intel side, all your level 0, all of your kind of harmless, non-illegal probes from Chattanooga and China, these threat intel people are automatically going, you're a nation state. You're a nation state actor. Your probes, your pings came from China, so you're as bad as the PLA. Right, and that's what we're packaging and selling to execs. Port scans, pings. The thing I like particularly with this situation was that they couldn't differentiate, with all their intel and advanced wisdom, the difference between interacting with a service and attacking a service. Right. So and they came out when Steve kind of did the cross interview and said, hey, why did you guys think that this was a nation state actor? He said, well, they were accessing these services that no one else accesses because they don't have web addresses, and this is all very weird. They just don't understand the basics of that. So that's kind of scary, first of all. They see every ping, every probe as an attack. So therefore, everything is an attack. Level 1 and 2, you can kind of hide. No one's going to notice you on this next-gen threat intel people because they're just going to attribute wherever. So you can pop out of Iceland. You can pop out of something kind of non-cool or not as, sexy in the media. And they're going to go, so what? There are a few pings out of Germany. We're not trying to peg Germany with anything right now. We're trying to ping China. So it doesn't really fit our narrative. So we'll let it go. Again, as you get up in sophistication, then you may get different levels of investigation or different levels of attention that you may not want. So that was kind of it. So we wanted to pose this because, again, this is very like me hating on threat intel. I can do that because I'm not trying to sell these products. And to be honest, I don't personally see the difference between me doxing Steven for fun and me like, oh, I'm getting these pings from China. Let me try to track it down and see who this is. Is it someone trolling me? Is it so? I don't really see how you can sell this, right? Besides having cool dashboards and pictures, right? Yeah. So the first question is that if you're not, and I hate this question, especially in the privacy context, which is why I put it here. If you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. So if you're a security researcher and you want to map out all port 102 on the internet because you wrote a script and you want to test it, and you purposely choose benign and non-functional devices to test your scripts, you don't have nothing to hide, then why hide it, right?
That's good. One addition to the previous slide as well, which is, so one of those thought processes I have, which is my script that I wrote is actually a port of another script that's been around for a while. So I figured, hey, this stuff's been out there. People know of it in the control system world. If you're running a con pot, you should at least know what's going on in the control system world, so you know what's available, what can possibly, and what those things look like, right? So one of the thoughts I was going through on that one when I was doing it was like, I've got nothing to hide because this has all been out, and I've publicly released my scripts. Everyone can go download it, and everyone can do it. Shodan actually took it and incorporated it into his scanning process. So these things are out there. So that goes back to, I really had nothing to hide. So as SynAck said, did I have anything to hide? Should I have bounced through a VPN? No, nobody knows. But you're a red teamer.
Well, how many people scan from their house? Right? No fucks to give, because you're not attacking anything, right? Right? There's a gray area, right? If I right, well, and there's other options. You can use Shodan, right? Matherly takes a lot of heat for his scanning services, but he does it, right? So you can proxy through him. But what if you want to test a script? What if you want to see how it actually interacts, and just instead of going to a website and going, oh yeah, they're running 102, so what? You go to Panera, right?
But I have 100 meg at my house.
That's right, yeah. All right.
Don't be jelly.
All right, so for the feds in the room, so threat intel is a intelligence services kind of DoD. That's a term that oh my God, cyber people don't really use too much, except recently. What is actually real threat intel? Or what should real threat intel be for cybersecurity? I mean, is it all about attribution? So like having anomalous traffic, here's some logs, here's some signatures, right? But they're not selling that's like information sharing. They're not selling log services, right? They're selling. So there was an interesting discussion on does it really matter who's attacking you if the techniques they're using are so basic that there's nothing advanced, there's no new signatures to put out, it's not a new piece of malware, it's SQL Slammer, right? Oh my God, we got infected with SQL Slammer. Does it really matter if it was China or if it was West Virginia or if it was China at that point, or Germany? It doesn't, right? Or China, PCI,
or Chattanooga.
So if threat intel is threat intel really information sharing? Because that's kind of a hot button thing with, does the DoD government, can they protect private enterprise, right? And how are the private enterprise, especially in critical infrastructure, how are the utilities going to share data about attacks that are happening? And is it the government's responsibility? So I don't know. I mean, that to me is something I've been struggling with, because what they're selling is not, to me, threat intel. Threat intel is that human in the loop. It's, hey, I understand this system or this region or this technique so well that, yeah, throw it into your SIM, your analysis, whatever. But I'm able to look at it and say, yeah, that's something I'm familiar with. That's malicious, that's benign, to be able to make that assessment on the fly. Things like, every now and then I'll get on Twitter, I'll get a DM from someone saying, hey, I found an open FTP and there's a whole bunch of SCADA shit on there. Can you take a look, right? So open FTP is bad, but that's like a lower informational on your Nessus scan, so no one's fixing that shit anyway, right? But he doesn't know enough about SCADA to look at all the diagrams and everything to know whether or not it's a big deal. It's just PDFs and designs and stuff. So someone like me or someone like Steven can go through and look at it and go, nah, it's not a big deal. This is publicly available information they have to put up for their public utilities, whatever. Or you can go through and say, yeah, all those PDFs, it had all of the configurations for all the PLCs, all the ladder logic, how the networks were connected, how remote access was handled, it's schematic. I was finding, we're talking about getting floor plans for red teaming and physical. I mean, engineering groups are bad. They did the engineering for that building, so I was finding engineering and floor plans for SCIFs, like where it's not technically classified, but holy shit, it shouldn't be on the internet, right? So you can, and that's what threat intel is to me, is that feeling where you go, you know what, this is technically compliant, PCI, right? But this doesn't feel right. I need to tell someone about this. This is bad news. That to me is threat intel, so or real threat intel. So how we apply that to our industry, I think, is still yet to be seen.
So at this point in time, going back to my story, which is I don't really care too much about threat intel. What bothered me the most about all of this was if you're going to do shiny graphs and shiny things for the CSO level, don't go write a Bloomberg article about things you don't know. Just don't do it. It made them look bad. It made more news, and it just, whether you're going to sell yourself as a threat intel, at least have real threat intel, or just don't go write articles about whatever you're trying to see.
Right. So for me, stuff like this, the warning here is, especially as a marketing guy now, it's really tempting to go out and do FUD pieces, right? Oh my gosh, utilities are under attack, buy our shit, right? You have to know what you're selling, and I don't think the people I showed you there know particularly what they're selling yet. And that's just my opinion. We kind of are this, but is threat intel useful? If threat intel is just attribution, is it actually useful to anyone? If you're sharing signatures, you're sharing logs, you're sharing, hey, I always get these type of probes at this time on these systems, and you want to share that with your peer organizations just to give them a heads up, yeah, I can see that. But does anyone actually use threat intel services in their organizations? Mm-hmm. You do it for research, though. Yeah. How are people... I mean, is this like Star Wars, like angle the deflector shields type shit? Like, hey, we're seeing a whole bunch of stuff from this IP block, so let's either put in rules or something to give a little more attention to that IP block, or?
Yeah. Typically they use it to like figure out where we have like step up our detection kind of stuff. Like, everyone's getting attacked with this thing. Let's start proactively setting up like flags so we know when we finally get it as well.
So resource prioritization, right? You only have so many resources. There's so many eyes on console. That's a good one. And I'm not trying to sell threat intel. I think it's a cool concept. I just think it's being implemented poorly or being marketed poorly right now. Meaning that I think it's much more person intensive than it is data visualization intensive. So I mean, we could be wrong on this. Maybe it's not completely worthless. Maybe it's just mostly worthless right now, and that's something we can bring back to the community. I don't know. I'm usually wrong. So. Yeah, that's a guy screwing a donkey. Just FYI.
It's not a goat.
PCI.
Not a goat.
PCI. All right, that's it. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Have you actually seen any threat intel screens that are working
So the problem is that everyone markets the worth it threat intel you have to pay for. So there are services like even from like ICS Cert, US Cert, Critical Intelligence. Their public stuff is like especially the one I love busting on DHS is they put out an ICS Cert. Hey, we're seeing a whole bunch of SSH brute force lately. Like, like what the hell am I supposed to do with that? SSH is going to get brute forced. So
I used to do blue teaming as well. One of my biggest problems I had at that time, which was 2-3 years ago, was you're 3, 4, 5 days behind on lag. So as you say, you can use it for a proactive going, we're seeing this and we haven't seen us get hit by it yet. So because we went through the logs and we saw that. But outside of that, you can't use it for real-time threat.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, I like busting on DHS because I know those guys, but ICS cert stuff. If you're in critical infrastructure, you're waiting at least 3, 4, 5 days. So. Yeah. So that's actually a whole nother field. So your semantics, your Verizon, DBIR, like that kind of stuff. I think that stuff's cool. I don't think that's threat intel. Well, it's more threat intel than what I was showing before, right? So they're probably getting cannibalized, and like you're saying, they got to rename it in order to keep with the times. But that shit's actually useful, right? Because you don't have, as an organization, thousands of sensors around the world getting slammed with new variants of malware all the time. You don't have the resources to set that up. You shouldn't be setting it up. I've been in some organizations who are like, we're going to do malware analysis in-house. Yeah, don't do that, right? That's a bad idea. There are people that do that 24/7. Just pay for them to do that. That's actually a hard thing. So no, that stuff's good, and it's actually useful, and that's why the antivirus people are still in business, personally. And it's not because of their scanners and that kind of crap. It's we have the horsepower to get to that stuff quicker than you could ever get to in-house. So that's why they're still in business. But yeah, no. So notice Verizon, Symantec, all those guys, they don't have their threat intel Kaspersky dashboard, right? Maybe they should. Maybe it'll help sales. I don't know. So.
Or maybe they're just not using the open source ones that we can find online.
Yeah, they're not pipping HoneyNet maps, right? And selling it as their own.
Anyone? Questions?
Awesome.
I know you got a bunch. It's a little rough, but that's why you pay the extra for commissary to get the shower gel, so you don't drop the soap.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, he's in the women's prison. I'm in the men's prison, so we're actually.
That's right. It's the hair. All right, so I think Rob, didn't you have an announcement? We're gonna. There's a schedule stuff, and we're gonna go play in the back, and no. All right, then screw it. Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah!
I like the wine mixer.